If you're a true believer in Christ Jesus and His written word, some of the information in this video may surprise you. But if you're a Christian, a religious Christian, and your name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life before the foundation of the world, and you're following religion, this video will shake you to the core. Revelation chapter 13 verse 8 says, "And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship Him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world." Watch this video till the end. Whether you're a believer or not, be prepared to be informed, convicted, or offended. John chapter 4 verses 21 through 24 says, "Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship Him. God is a spirit, and they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth." And that's the problem today. People have no clue who or what they're worshiping, but we're going to find out. John chapter 1 verse 5 says, "And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." Hebrews 5:14, "But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil." In Ephesians 5:11, "Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." We are supposed to expose evil, no matter who it offends. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 1 through 6. "Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by the manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. For we preach not ourselves, but Jesus Christ the Lord, and ourselves your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who commanded the light to shine out of the darkness, hath shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ." 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verses 3 and 4 says, "But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit, which you have not received, or another gospel, which you have not accepted, you might well bear with him." The Catholic Jesus is not the Jesus of the Bible. As you can see in this image, Christ with the Eucharist equals the Baphomet. The false Jesus as effeminate, and Baphomet is androgynous, male and female. In the right hand, they have the sun, the Eucharist, and in the moon on the Baphomet. The Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, the right hand up and the left hand down. The phallic wand of Hermes with the womb, and then they have the cup as the representation of that in the Catholic religion. The five-element crown, what it all boils down to is they are preaching another Jesus, another gospel. Galatians chapter 1 verses 6 through 10 says, "I marvel that you are so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of Christ unto another gospel, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you, and would pervert the gospel of Christ. But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that you have received, let him be accursed. For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I yet pleased men, I should not be the servant of Christ." There's only one Holy Father, and this man isn't him. Matthew chapter 23 verse 9 says, "And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven." So if you're calling this man Father, let me show you who your Father really is.
What are you? Oh, I have so many names. See. Call me Dad.
Saturn is the key. Interestingly, this is an accepted ancient symbol of the sun. And people think, understandably, that it's a symbol of the sun that we know today, Saturn. It was known as the old sun. It is known in occult as the old sun, the dark sun, and the dark lord, the lord of the rings. At least so many, if not all, the ancient sun gods were not gods of the sun we know today, but of the Saturn sun. Saturn has long been symbolized as an eye. There's the eye in Freemasonry. There's the eye of Sauron in the Lord of the Rings, the reptilian eye, the symbol of the negative force. This, as the Earth moved on its axis, when viewed from the Earth, this appeared to move around Saturn. And at different points, there are different symbolism for different points. But this was the one that really was the focus of Saturn symbolism, because this was when that luminous crescent was at its most luminous during the day. And so you find this symbol over and over in the ancient world. And this is a common recurring theme of Saturn. And this, the crescent symbolically, and the disk of the Saturn sun, the dwarf star. And so from this came the horned god, the horned goddess. There is Madonna in her Super Bowl performance at halftime, which was so Saturn in its symbolism, it was laughable, including the fiery eye. And in the movie version of The Lord of the Rings, you had the crescent holding the eye of Sauron. In Arabia, or you look at that of the symbol of Islam, the star, the sun, and the crescent. And the Arabian god Sin was symbolized as a crescent. Here you go. And this represents the crescent of Saturn. This is the guy who started a satanic Saturn organization or secret society out of Germany called the Brotherhood of Saturn. And there's that symbol of the sun, look, with a dot. That's Saturn, not the sun that we have today, and the horned god. Molech, who is symbolized at Bohemian Grove as the owl, is also symbolized as the bull, and there's the horns with Saturn in the middle. And so you have the bull gods of Mesopotamia. And the winged goddesses in that state, this was often symbolized as the goddess with her holding the god, her arms around the god, or her wings around the god. And there is another version of that, the god Saturn and the crescent. And there it is on the Great Seal of the United States, exactly the same symbolism. There it is in the Air Force Special Operations Command. There it is in the symbol of the House of Windsor. There it is in the United Nations, with the target on the world, very appropriately. There it is in the eagle of Rome. Here it is in Freemasonry. The flying disc of Egypt and other places is Saturn. And thus you have the Rosicrucian order, which connects into this network, using that flying disc symbolism. And so many of these logos carry the same symbolism. And in her Super Bowl performance, Madonna had the flying disc of Saturn. This is another ancient Saturn symbol because at some points, apparently, it seemed to give off 4 very distinct lights. And so you find it, because of these bloodlines connecting into all these institutions, you find it in the Roman Church, you find it on the mace in the Houses of Parliament, you find it on the crown, you found it in the Celtic cross, and you find it in one of the major secret societies in the network, the House of Malta. It's known as the Maltese cross. It was also symbolized, this Saturn symbol and crescent, as the flying god in his flying boat. This is Horus in his heavenly boat. This is why it's used in the boats used in Freemasonry. This is a Freemasonic building on the Isle of Wight, funnily enough. And that was massively Saturn symbolism when you watched it play out. Then you've got this symbol of the horned god, again, Saturn, Satan, as it also became known, which is you find with so many politicians. And Pat Robertson, this so-called Christian evangelist, yeah, okay. And talking of horns and horned gods, in astrology, Saturn is connected to Capricorn, and so one of the Saturn symbols is the goat. This again is the great Freemasonic historian Manly P. Hall, who said Pan, the goat god, was a composite creature, the upper part, with the exception of his horns, being human, and the lower part in the form of a goat. The god himself is a symbol of Saturn, because this planet is enthroned in Capricorn, whose emblem is a goat. That is what that is. Baphomet, worshipped by Satanists. It's a symbol of Saturn. You have Baphomet. You have Beyonce, the wife of Jay-Z, with this big Baphomet ring, which is performing. You have Baphomet-dressed Lady Gaga, Baphomet-dressed Madonna, and you have Baroness Philippine de Rothschild from the wineries in France with a massive Baphomet necklace. And this is from the front cover of the Saturn myth, with the symbolism described of these lights that went off from Saturn at certain points, with the four main ones there. And there it is symbolized on one of these ancient tablets. And in St. Peter's Square, that is a mirror of the way that Saturn symbol looks. And there it is on the thing that he has his biscuit in. Now, this is inside the Mother Lodge of Freemasonry in Great Queen Street. Great Queen was the name of the Babylonian goddess, in London. This crescent holding the sphere also became symbolized as twin pillars. And so you have Saturn, there's the crescent, being held up by the twin pillars. This is in one of the Freemasonic centers of the world in London. Numerologically, digitally, Saturn is number 8, and this has led to symbolism of Saturn in terms of the spider. Thus you have, in Madonna's Super Bowl performance, the winged disc symbolized with a spider in the center. Now this is fascinating. This is called the magic square of Saturn. And it's also, not by coincidence, the magic square of Freemasonry. And it's magic because of this reason. If you go that way, that way, that way, that way, or that way, or that way, all the numbers in the 3 blocks in line add up to 15. 15, in numerological terms, is 6. So 666, 666 in all directions. And the black and white squares also relates to Saturn. And so you have them in Freemasonic temples, black and white squares, and you have them in the major cathedrals, like Westminster Abbey, because of this connection I'm talking about. Now, this is called the sigil of Saturn. And they get this symbol by drawing in the magic square of Saturn from 1 to 2, and then to 3, from 4 to 5 to 6, etc. That's how they get it. Now, you turn that straight up, and that's what that is. It's the sigil of Saturn. And this is a major symbol of Saturn going way back, the 6-pointed star. It just so happens to be the very symbol from which we get the name Rothschild, one of the major families in this network. Because they used to be called Bauer. They lived in Frankfurt in Germany. But they had this red 6-pointed star hexagram on the front of their house, and they changed their name from Bauer to Red Shield in German, Rothschild, red sign or red shield, Rothschild. So they're named after this very symbol. And it was they that created Israel, not on behalf of Jewish people, on behalf of their bloody agenda that treats Jewish people with as much disdain as any of the rest of us. And so you have their symbol on the flag of Israel. They use the 6-pointed star so much in law enforcement. This is on a public building in Toronto, right in the center of the 6-pointed star. There's the horned god. There's the sheriff and a medal. There is the 6-pointed star representing Saturn on an ancient clay depiction. And there it is on Credo Mutwa's 500 to 1,000-year-old Zulu hand symbol. If you do that on the dollar bill, you get the 6-pointed star, and that those letters make an anagram of Mason, interestingly. Inside the Great Mother Lodge of Freemasonry in Great Queen Street, London, there is the Twin Towers, symbolic of the crescent, and there is Saturn again, the six-pointed star. Now, of course, the Roman Church and Christianity, it's on his bloody fish hat, look. Right? They're everywhere because the same force is in control. Here you go, I have a bit more Madonna. There you go. And on the Great Seal of the United States, those 13 stars make up a six-pointed star, not by accident. And therefore, again, we keep coming back to this, all these different areas of society are in the end focused on one thing. Satanism is Saturnism. This is Fritz Springmeier, a long-time researcher into this and symbolism, etc., and Satanism. Saturn is an important key to understanding the long heritage this conspiracy has back to antiquity. The city of Rome was originally known as the Saturnia, or City of Saturn. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of Saturn worship in its ritual. Saturn also relates to Lucifer. In various occult dictionaries, Saturn is associated with evil. And this is the remains of the Temple of Saturn in Rome. And just next to this is this place called Capitoline Hill now, but before that called Mons Saturnus, the Hill of Saturn. And this is a very symbolically important place to the bloodlines. And this whole thing about the skull and bones, Capitoline Hill comes from caput, meaning dead, because they were supposed to have found a human skull there, and they call it caput, Capitoline Hill. That's why we say kaput when something's dead. And you have the theme in Christianity of Golgotha and Calvary, the place of the skull, hill of the skull. And Capitoline Hill became Capitol Hill when the bloodlines moved in on America. In the North Pole, the northern pole of Saturn, is a permanent storm which takes the form of a hexagon. And the hexagon also is an expression of the hexagram, or of the six-pointed star. So you look at this crop circle from England, and it is a hexagon. But a hexagon is a flattened out cube. So when you look at it from another angle, it's a cube. Well, it just so happens that an ancient symbol of Saturn is the cube, especially the black cube. And I would suggest that's what they are. The Kaaba, the focus of worship in Islam, Kaaba means cube. The tefillin, the cube on the head in Judaism. And when people go to worship around the Kaaba, they're told to pray in concentric circles. Remind you of anything? There's these massive cubes that they use. This is outside the one of the banks near Wall Street. You see these black cubes and cubes like used by Apple and stuff. Saturn symbolism. In Doctor Who, they had this recent one where the Earth was invaded by black cubes. Star Trek, you had the Borg, who were these cyborg-like, exactly as the are described by the Gnostics of the Archons, and they used to move around in these cubes. If you geometrically represent the cross, then it is a flattened out cube. When you look at the depictions of these people, not Lady Gaga, but others, these religious leaders with the halo, well, that comes from Saturn as well, that halo when that luminous crescent was in that position. Astrologically, that's the symbol of Saturn. And what they symbolized this as was the sickle and the hammer. And when the Rothschilds created the Soviet Union, provable fact if you look at the evidence, they used the symbol of Saturn as the symbol of the Soviet Union. There's that symbol on this guy from the Brotherhood of Saturn. The Jesuits are a major secret society in this global network, and there's the symbol of Saturn in their symbolism very clearly. The snake on the cross also relates to this in some ways. Now, this is going to take us forward here, because the god of Saturn of the Greeks was called Kronos. And Kronos was, because it was the god Saturn, the sickle, the scythe, was represented as holding the scythe, and also he was depicted as the god of time. And he had the beard, the white beard, and he became Old Father Time. That's Kronos, that's the god of Saturn. He also became the Grim Reaper, because Saturn is the planet, I say, son of death. And Kronos became crown, a symbol of the bloodlines. Kali, a goddess related to Saturn, it was called the Black One, and the goddess of time, depicted with a protruding tongue. There's Madonna again. I mean, she must have the bloody book she works through, this one. Saturn, Kronos, Satan, Black Sun, Dark Lord, they're all the same thing, the expression of this force. And here you have Moloch, that they worship at Bohemian Grove, and he is a god of Saturn, this recurring theme. They also represent Moloch as a bull, as I said earlier, and so you have that as the symbol of Wall Street. And the golden calf in the Bible is Moloch, Saturn. The Greeks talked about Saturn used to eat his own children. And here's the colors of Satanism and the colors of Saturn, black and red, same as the royal protocol. The robes of the judge, the robes of the clergy, the square hats of universities, the hammer that the judge uses, it's all Saturn symbolism. You see Saturn profusely used in symbolism of the corporate world. And this, this earth, wind and fire, they got the bloody set. There's the eye, there's the six-pointed star, there's the step pyramid, there's the winged disc, and there's bloody Saturn. And then, therefore, you look at religions and secret societies and Satanism, they're worshipping Saturn. Then you look astrologically, in other words, energetically. Banking is astrologically ruled by Saturn. Politics and institutions of state at all levels, astrologically ruled by Saturn. Corporations, astrologically ruled by Saturn. Law and court system, astrologically ruled by Saturn. Science, astrologically ruled by Saturn. Saturn worship, Satan worship. And it's interesting that you have the god of Saturn, Kronos, with the beard, and and all these bloody religions, they have bloody beards. And then you have God depicted as a man with a white beard on a cloud or on a throne. And there's God, Charlton Heston type God. And then we have Santa with the white beard. Santa, anagram of Satan, from Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a festival in Rome where they worshipped the god Saturn. And they gave, it was in the same period to the run-up to our Christmas, and they gave gifts, they decorated trees, and they hung sprigs of bloody holly. So that is Saturn symbolism, a man with a white beard. This is Ancient of Days, a painting by William Blake from, I think, 1794 or something like that. Ancient of Days is an old name for God. And he's depicting God. He was a very deep esoteric thinker and great knowledge, William Blake. And he's depicting God with the white beard. That's Saturn, Kronos. On the GE building in the Rockefeller Center in New York, there's Kronos again. Now, the Freemasons, they call their God the great architect of the universe. The demiurge was known by the Gnostics as the great architect of the universe, which brings us to the white-bearded architect of The Matrix, and the Matrix movie series. So where is this leading us? Well, again, this needs to go, if we're going to go anywhere with this, because I'm going into fantastic areas here, but this is where the information has taken me very, very clearly. And the hardest thing to see is what is in front of your eyes. I was in New York in 2010, and someone took me to the subway station for Ground Zero. And when I saw it, it was like, whoa, it hit me big time. There was, first of all, this eyes all along the platforms, but there is this massive depiction of the world on the floor, and then there's an eye, and going out from this eye are these broadcast transmissions. And that hit me so powerfully. Neil Haig was with me, and we kind of looked at each other and said, that's Saturn, isn't it?
In Roman mythology, it was prophesied that one day Saturn would lose power when one of his children would depose him. To prevent this from happening, each time Ops, his sister and wife, delivered a child, Saturn would immediately devour it. In other words, Saturn eats babies. This shows a connection between Saturn and Moloch, the god of sacrifice, and known as father of all the gods. While Saturn is not Moloch, Saturn is a creation of Moloch, for Moloch is the being of Ormethian, or the god of service to self-beings. These are the people who worship the physical universe. Moloch is where what we would call evil originates from. Similar to Saturn, Moloch goes by many names, some including El, Baal, Baal, Dagon, and Asura. The force of Moloch is extremely wise and cunning, which is why it is symbolized as the wise owl and the knowledgeable bull. The owl you will recognize if you are familiar with the Bohemian Grove, and the bull symbolism goes way back, depicting the god as a bull or half bull, half man. You probably have recognized the hand sign for the bull because those in the elite understand exactly what it represents and flash the hand sign on occasion. This goes to show that behind the leaders of the world pretending to war with each other, there's a lot more going on that you don't see or read about. Moloch is the god of sacrifice, and sacrifice by way of fire is one method of worship. People have sacrificed animals and people, even children and babies, to this entity. Moloch is known as the consumer and represents the material world. Isn't it funny that those who buy into material obsession are also known as consumers? This is not a coincidence. One of the most powerful symbols of Moloch is the obelisk, also known as the phallus of the gods or the phallus of the bull, since it represents a bull's penis. Obelisks are a symbol that are everywhere, going back from today in modern America all the way back to Egypt. When you begin to understand language and how words are put together, you find out that Moloch symbolism is very apparent in language as well. Anyways, back to Saturn. By following the symbolism, having a look at the symbol for Saturn the god, we see the sickle or the scythe and the cross. Taking these two signs apart, we have the sickle representing the harvest, and here we have the cross. The reason the cross is so important to Christianity is not because in the Bible the god was nailed to it.
Again, you don't know what you worship. And Jesus is seated at the right hand of the Father, according to Scripture. He's not still on the cross. This is another way of mocking Jesus, while glorifying their god, Lucifer.
The cross represents Saturn and has been since the beginning. They just needed a reason to flash it everywhere.
A lot of Christians wear crosses around their necks. Do you think when Jesus comes back, he ever wants to see a cross?
Understanding this symbolism, we can see where so many of the symbols we see day to day originate. From the Knights Templar to the Red Cross to many different company logos and industries. One of the most basic and easiest possible symbols to make just happens to represent Saturn. This is by design. Another symbol for Saturn is the cube, oftentimes a black cube, for the color of Saturn is black. One of the most important symbols of the cube is Mecca, where the Muslims make their Hajj, for their god is the same god Saturn as it is with all the other mainstream religions. So what's so special about this symbol of the cube? And here we have the sigil of Saturn, the planet. Many practicing Satanists believe that wearing the sigil of Saturn utilizes and attracts Saturn's planetary vibrations to the wearer. Another symbol we can get from this is the logo of Freemasonry. This is just one example of how two seemingly different groups can be based on the same information and understandings. Getting back to the symbols of the sickle and the scythe, both of these symbols represent the harvest, but in addition they both represent an elliptical or orbital pattern attributing to the rings of Saturn. The ringed planet symbolism is everywhere. You can't hardly browse the internet, watch the TV, or even drive down the street without seeing these symbols flashing in front of you. Have a look for yourself and you will see that many of these symbols are very similar to each other and most are depicting exactly the same thing in different ways or different angles.
Try explaining the six-sided vortex at the North Pole.
Saturn has a hexagon. It's some kind of a wave, but it's a permanent wave.
So located on the North Pole of the planet is a hexagon. This could be the reason why so many companies use a hexagon for their logo. In addition, the hexagon is a 2D representation of a 3D cube, and can also be the reason for the importance of the Star of David. But wait, there's more!
The South Pole has something that looks very much like a hurricane eye, except the clouds are 5 times the height of the eye wall around a terrestrial hurricane.
So it's kind of a window into the depths of Saturn, showing us just how dynamic the planet really is.
Aha! So there's the Eye of Saturn. I'm sure most of you know how much all-seeing eye symbolism there is. We're told that the all-seeing eye goes back to Horus in Egypt, but it's just another reference to Saturn. Okay, with all this Saturn symbolism brings up a very important question. What is the point of all this? So by following the symbolism, we can see that God of the mainstream religions, be it Saturn, Satan, Kronos, Ninib, Shani, and then Moloch, El, Baal, Dagon, and Asura, it doesn't matter what name is given to them. They all represent the same two forces, Saturn and Moloch.
Isaiah chapter 5 verses 20 and 21. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight.
Dagon, but this has to have been done for a reason.
Who is the god they worship, though?
The Vatican is actually dominated by the worship of an ancient god called Dagon, D-A-G-O-N.
Matthew 16:26, Jesus said, For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?
Dagon was referred to as a fish god because he came out of the sea, which goes all the way back to Sumeria and into the ancient writings of some of the religious movements of the ancient and prehistoric world. This god who came out of the sea, Dagon. The symbols of that the Pope wears is of the god Dagon. Rome has always been involved with the worship of Dagon, and Dagon, as I said, was a fish god. This is why the Pope's mitre is a fish head, and it's very obvious. When you look at the mitre from the side, it's a fish head. And all of the symbols, like today, even in Protestant Christianity, which is actually just the offspring of the original Dagon worship, the Protestant movement was not happy with the way that Rome was running things. It did not want to change the religion and dropped the worship of Dagon and all the other silly nonsense that Rome was into religiously. The Protestant world movement did not want to drop any of that because that stuff works. It was a winner. I mean, the crowds loved it. So they didn't want to change and do anything spectacular in changing the worship of Dagon. They just didn't like the way Rome was running things, so they broke off and started a new phase of the old Roman religion. They called it Protestantism because they were protesting against the way Rome ran Europe. So today, even the Protestant churches of the world are worshiping Dagon, and the worship of this ancient god is everywhere. And this is why even being a fish god, this is why on the back of Christians' cars you will see a fish symbol. We're told that was a symbol of early Christianity, was a fish symbol. Well, of course it was the symbol for Christianity because Christianity was the worship of Dagon. The Roman Catholic Church, the Roman system of Mithra or Dagon, is now dominating the American system.
What is now called the Christian religion has existed among the ancients and was not absent from the beginning of the human race until Christ came in the flesh, from which time the religion which already existed began to be called Christian.
If you're going to believe something, you better do your homework and find out what the words really mean. Because the men who run this world from behind the scenes are telling you something and they're doing something, and unless you know how to read the code, you're never going to figure out what's going on here.
How did you ever totally get control of these Christian churches who at one time told their congregations to stay away from you Jews? How did that happen?
Well, you know, our father Lucifer, all the organizations out there on the earth that we would want to infiltrate and take over of you Goyim, obviously would be the churches. So we attacked them first, and we attacked them most. And we infiltrated the Catholic Church right from the very beginning. Why do you think the Pope and all the cardinals and the bishops wear a yarmulke? The white race never figures this out. And so then we took all your books that had all your scriptures in there, and we burned them. And then we wrote them in Latin so that you couldn't understand them. But we understood Latin because we're Jews and we're smart and we're educated. But you, Goyim out there, you never teach yourself. You don't self-teach. You're always looking for somebody else to do it for you. So you wind up being schleppers all your life.
Picture how many people are worshiping their God every single day, be it through religion or through material goods and desires, then you'll see that this is a lot of energy indeed. If all these gods represent Saturn, and Saturn the god represents the planet itself, then all of this energy would be going to Saturn. What is so important about Saturn, and what does it have to do with us? And why does it require all this energy?
The old Phoenician Canaanite worship of the planet Saturn was the most important god of all the ancient world, was the planet Saturn, and his symbol, long before the Hebrews were ever in Canaan, the symbol in Canaan for the planet Saturn was a six-pointed star. Today we call that star the Star of David. There was no Star of David. That's the Star of Saturn.
Where you can slip and try to find me. Hold your breath and flat deny me. You can't hold, makes no difference to my thinking. I'll be here when you start sinking.
Saturn's symbolism is everywhere: Carthage, Japan, Egypt, Cyprus, Lebanon, Mongolia, Wales, Arabia, Iran, Romania, Mexico, Sahonia, Akbar's palace, Russia, Turkey, Constantinople, Salamanca, Spain, Moorish, Mamluks, Ireland, and Rome. One symbol unites all of these countries. Where else are we seeing these symbols?
And we infiltrated the Catholic Church right from the very beginning. Why do you think the Pope and all the cardinals and the bishops wear a yarmulke?
But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived, in whom the God of this world had blinded the minds of them which believe not. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens.
2 Kings 17. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant, and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up, and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea the king of Assyria took Samaria, and carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor, by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was, that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill, and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets, and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity, and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Also Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuthah, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria, and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there, that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, The nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit, every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima, and the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord, and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Lord, and served their own gods, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Unto this day they do after the former manners. They fear not the Lord, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the law and commandment which the Lord commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel, with whom the Lord had made a covenant, and charged them, saying, Ye shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But the Lord who brought you up out of the land of Egypt with great power and a stretched out arm, him shall ye fear, and him shall ye worship, and to him shall ye do sacrifice. And the statutes and the ordinances and the law and the commandment, which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do for evermore, and ye shall not fear other gods. And the covenant that I have made with you ye shall not forget, neither shall ye fear other gods. But the Lord your God ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared the Lord, and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers, so do they unto this day.
Amos 5:25-26. Have you offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? But you have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Kayun your images, the star of your God, which you made to yourselves. Acts 7:43. Yea, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which you made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon.
God of the mainstream religions, be it Saturn, Satan, Kronos, Ninib, Shani, and then Moloch, El, Baal, Dagon, and Asura, it doesn't matter what name is given to them. They all represent the same two forces, Saturn and Moloch.
Our Father Lucifer, our Father Lucifer, our Father Lucifer.
If you're going to believe something, you better do your homework and find out what the words really mean. Because the men who run this world from behind the scenes are telling you something, and they're doing something, and unless you know how to read the code, you're never going to figure out what's going on here. Let me warn you that the same people who have given you Illuminati, who have given you your international banking cartels, who have given you your corrupt governmental systems, has also given you Christianity. It's very interestingly woven as to symbolic metaphors. And once you understand what the symbols mean, it finally hits you. Wow, now I see what the Bible's saying. And it's not saying anything like what Christianity had taught you. Christianity is merely a corporate entity founded in Europe by the Knights Templars, the same people today we call international bankers.
If you label yourself a Christian, and this offended you because you refuse to open your eyes, then so be it. We will not apologize for the truth. However, if you have labeled yourself a Christian and have now realized the error of your ways, then listen to this. Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. God's written word is speaking of the whore of Babylon, the Catholic religion. God's written word is telling you to come out of this abomination, this abominable religion, now.